It's not that these bags were bad. There's definitely a few common themes with the choices that I made and some lessons that I learned along the way. This is by no means to say that these are bad bags. Hopefully you'll find some inspiration, or if you're just starting out your collection, this will just give you some things to consider. These are just my personal opinion. You may like some of these bags and they might actually fit your lifestyle. So I will link to them in the description below. So yeah, let's get started. The first bag would be the Chanel boy bag that I have here. It was this like rusty orange color. It was actually a really beautiful color. I bought it in Paris many years ago. And yeah, I loved the stitching. At the time I was into like very unique bags that would be hard to find. I just wanted something very just special. And so I found this and I immediately fell in love. It was like a work of art to me and I got it. Now, when I got back home and I started to figure out how am I going to wear this bag, I realized that I was running into an issue where this bag didn't really match with my wardrobe. And I also noticed that my style started to like change. I think, well, maybe I could kind of wear this orange as like a neutral. I tried to position it that way in my head. I tried, but the gunmetal chain wasn't working for me either. I leaned more towards gold. I do like to mix my jewelry, but that gunmetal I think was a little too dark. I ended up selling it and I thought, well, maybe, you know, the boy bag, I love it. It's a beautiful design. It's a classic Chanel design. I like that it's a little bit more modern with a slight edge, but maybe that combination was what made it not right. So I thought if I can find a neutral colored bag with a gold chain, maybe that will work. So I ended up finding this one, which I bought at the Real Real. So it's pre-loved. The orange Chanel boy bag. I bought it brand new at a boutique in Paris. The pre-loved market wasn't really flourishing yet. So if I was gonna buy another boy bag, I was like, I'm gonna find something pre-loved. And so I bought this maybe like in the last 3-4 years. Now, this one is actually really nice. It actually has like a little sheen to it, and it has the gold hardware that I was looking for. Since it was pre-loved, it had already been worn in a little bit, so it definitely was softer. The orange one was a little too rigid. Now, can I say that I've been wearing this bag a lot? No, not really. I thought I would, and I think what I'm realizing even more now is that it's not a big bag, but it's very structured. I don't even know if it's the structure. This bag is actually a heavy bag. The chain is what makes it heavy, for sure. I think the other thing though is that there's just a lot of chain, just a lot, and it's very noisy. You can hear that, right? It's a little bit heavier on the shoulder, and you have to kind of watch out for your hair to not get it entwined in these notches here. I typically have to make sure I'm either wearing my hair up or have my hair to the side like this. This bag is becoming more of a hassle than I thought it would be. And so I just, as much as I love the design, I don't reach out for it as much. I typically go for another bag in this color. It's beautiful, but it's just not something I'm using enough to justify taking up space in my closet. So I'm considering selling it. If anyone's interested, leave me a comment below and maybe we can work something out. If you're in New York City, even better. Beautiful bag, beautiful design. It is a bag that works for many, just not for me. The next bag is from Valentino. I was a really big Valentino fan for quite some time. I actually ended up really loving the Rockstud line. The first bag was this red Valentino It's not red Valentino. I realized that there is a red Valentino, but this was a Valentino that was red. I also found this in Paris. I wanted a red bag at the time, but I didn't want something bright. So I really loved how this was a little bit darker. It was a more textured, like rougher leather, so I knew it could withstand a little bit of wear. And I really thought that the gunmetal Rockstuds were really cool. Like, I hadn't seen any Valentino Rockstud bags with this gunmetal. So I clearly was also into like a gunmetal thing. I thought it just helped keep it a little bit more muted. It wasn't as shiny as like the gold Rockstuds were. But I ended up going through the same issue that I had with the orange Chanel boy bag. It also was very edgy, and yet I didn't have a edgy personal style. I was clearly trying to like experiment and break out of my shell a little bit, be a little bit more cool girl, but I wasn't exactly doing it in the right way. I probably should have experimented with clothes first before spending a fair amount on these handbags. The other Valentino bag was actually a little bit more romantic. It was my first Valentino bag actually, and it was in this like pink color. It had these beautiful lace embellishments. This was beautiful to the eye. It was kind of more neutral, and so I could wear it with more things. The only issue was that it was very specific. Like, it was definitely meant to be a dressier bag, to be worn with more dressy things. I lived in San Francisco. That wasn't the lifestyle that we were having at the time. I guess it matched more of that romantic style that I was going for, so like the edgy bags didn't. But then my style started to transition again. I was starting to modernize it a little bit. I just ended up not really wearing it, and it took up space in my closet. It was just really for special occasions, and there weren't a lot of special occasions that we were like going to. Maybe for a wedding or something like that, but it was still too big for a wedding. Still too big for an evening bag. So yeah, it was very specific. It was beautiful to look at, but just wasn't fitting with my lifestyle. I actually bought this Louis Vuitton bag in New York before we lived here, and I wore this one a lot. It was actually a very practical bag, and for once I found something that worked with my wardrobe, with my lifestyle. However, the red detail, I think I was trying to get something that stood out and didn't look like everyone else's Louis Vuitton bag, but once again, it was harder to kind of like match it with my wardrobe, especially when it came to shoes. Like, I think there's this one picture, yeah, I'm wearing like leopard loafers, and then I'm wearing this bag with the red. I wouldn't mix patterns like this anymore, but you could see like at the time I was really struggling and probably trying a little too hard to make it work. When the pochette métisse came out, I really loved the look of that bag, and that one felt more classic and timeless. It didn't make sense to have both in my wardrobe, so I ended up selling it and getting the pochette métisse, and I love that bag. I still use it a lot. That was like the right decision for me. And then this Gucci camera bag, I used the hell out of that thing. It was actually perfect for my lifestyle in San Francisco. It went with most of my things. I was in that romantic era. I really was drawn towards like neutral pinks, mauve pinks, dusty rose, like that color palette. And so it worked at the time. But I realized that the more I wore those types of pinks, it actually made my skin look more pink, and I didn't really want that. So I started changing out my wardrobe a little bit, and now this bag didn't really go with a lot of things. I also was tired of the GG like logo on the front of the bag, and like if I wanted to turn it around, there would be this like heart on the bag. I realized that I was also just trending away from Gucci in general. Now, I still do have a camera bag, but it's definitely more like simple and plain. Now, the final bag, I was obsessed with the Prada Cahier bag. I would scroll through Instagram, and I remember this beautiful Prada Cahier. It had these beautiful lace cutouts. And then I saw this very, very pretty mini cahier. It had this green velvet, and I was just like, oh, this is perfect for the holidays. I bought it, and then when we got back home, I realized it doesn't go with any of my things. So once again, I don't know if you're noticing a common theme here, but I'm going to go through lessons learned at the end of this. So I ended up returning it. Luckily, that was an easy process for me. I ended up finding a Prada Cahier, the normal style of that bag. And I wore it for maybe 2 years, but honestly, I had a similar issue to it like I had with the boy bag. I think it's just that it's kind of like a larger boxy frame, and it was very rigid, and that doesn't seem to work for me anymore. Maybe if it's like a thinner silhouette, it would work, but this is definitely a little wider. I like architectural designs, but you know, it needs to be practical. And I think in this case, it looks like a book, it looks like an antique. Like, I really loved that, but to wear it as a bag and with the thicker strap, I ended up letting go of it. These are a few of the bags that I purchased in the past that I let go of. Lessons learned here for me and for what I realized was going to work better for me down the road. First thing is, you can appreciate a work of art. It doesn't mean you have to own it. I noticed that was a common theme across all of these bags that I've talked about today, that these were all beautiful on their own. They might be just beautiful to look at and witness on other people, in a room, in a magazine, but it doesn't mean that you have to own it. That leads to my next tip, which is do a lot of research before. Research the bags, start to curate a wish list, and definitely look to see, does this go with my lifestyle? Does this go with my wardrobe? I realized that these bags that I'm talking about are bags that I actually purchased while I was traveling. And so I didn't have access to my wardrobe, right? I without really being able to like try it on and then bring it back and things like that. That was like my biggest issue. So definitely I learned at that point that I need to start being more mindful about which bags I buy and start to think about, how does this fit for my lifestyle, and you know, what do I want to grow old with me? Don't just think of the now, think of what will have more longevity. And so that was like the second lesson that I learned. The third one was to go for bags in neutral colors. I realized I was buying reds, oranges, you know, navy blues, these like pale pinks, and I was struggling. These were beautiful on their own and at the time, but they weren't going with things in my wardrobe, and they wouldn't be able to stay with me as my wardrobe changed. It's a lot easier to adapt neutral colored bags to an ever-changing wardrobe than it is the other way around. Like, if you think about it, you can always wear neutral bags with neutral clothes or with like colorful clothes. And if your style changes a little bit, then if you have a timeless neutral bag, it will still go well with it. But if you have these very specific and very unique bags that can only be worn in certain ways or for certain occasions or with a certain style, it's going to be very hard to match that with your wardrobe as your style changes over time. So that's when I also realized, like, don't go for like the specific unique bags, because they may not grow with you over time. There might be exceptions, maybe like a specific evening bag or things like that, but that's what I noticed, at least for everyday bags or bags that I wanted to wear more often, they needed to also be timeless classics in order to have more mileage in my wardrobe. That actually ties into my last thing, which is like timeless classics have more longevity than trendy bags, specific, unique bags. That was an important lesson and a very expensive lesson for me to learn. Luckily, I was able to sell a good portion of these bags and make a lot of my money back. I also have downsized my collection significantly. Now, again, these are the bags that didn't work for me, they could work for someone else. So if you're interested in looking at them, I have linked them below. A good number of them are on the pre-loved market, or I have linked to alternatives that kind of give that vibe or that style. Let me know which bags you've had in the past that you had to let go of. Maybe some of these bags would work for you. Let's talk about some of the bags that did or didn't work for us and share our little tales. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell so that you receive alerts whenever I upload new videos. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.